I remember saying on this channel that this specific moment was better than his entire WWE run, and some of y'all tried to drag me for that. Well, look who's laughing now. Hey everyone, AEW is celebrating its 3rd year on television this week. That is a major accomplishment. It's big news that some people are going to be upset about, and for the life of me, I still don't know why. All Elite Wrestling has already experienced a lot of big ups and downs in its relatively brief existence. From banner TV deals to iconic signings to poorly timed injuries to backstage drama, AEW as an entity has endured quite the initiation process. But in a time when folks are more picky than ever about what they like in their wrestling or what they watch, period, going 3 years strong is something worth praising. In honor of this huge milestone, let's celebrate what's made AEW such a joy for me and others to watch. This week, I'm going to rank them, my picks for the top 8 best things AEW has done in the last 3 years. But hey, if you want to hear me rag on AEW for several minutes, then brother, have I got the countdown for you right here. Let's begin. Number 8, Le Dîner Debonair. The longer I've been doing this, the more I've learned to embrace and appreciate the wackier side of wrestling. And God bless him, Chris Jericho's done a great job facilitating my love of that side for the last several years in AEW. As the leader of the Inner Circle and more recently the Jericho Appreciation Society, Jericho's been able to straddle that line between serious and silly on a regular basis. I guess it's one way of saying he's at the point now where he can do or say anything he wants as long as he can make a t-shirt out of it, and that for the most part it's still entertaining. Well, one nickname aside, that is. 2020 was perhaps Jericho's most experimental year in a while, and things didn't get much sillier than the October 21st episode of Dynamite, when he and MJF shared a fancy dinner. Le Dîner Debonair, that is.
They ring a ding ding happy new year.
Since wrestling is a form of theater in the first place, and as I myself am a former theater kid, I find nothing wrong with wrestling going into the musical theater side of things every now and then. For me, this moment was pure off-the-wall fun, a light-hearted precursor to what would become a bitter rivalry between the two. I consider Jericho and MJF to be two of the best pure characters in AEW, so to see them go outside their normal limits for a cheesy song and dance was a stone-cold hit in my eyes. Number 7, the resurrection of Sting. One of AEW's most consistent strengths over the years is how they portrayed the legends in their roster. Guys like Jake Roberts and Arn Anderson and Billy Gunn. Pretty much everyone except Tully Blanchard, for some reason. Anyway, here's one of their better examples. At the end of 2015, many had thought we'd seen the last of the Stinger. A confusing path in WWE ended with a serious spinal injury, and besides a Hall of Fame induction the following year, that seemed to be the end of his story. But it turns out another chapter had yet to be written. In terms of name recognition alone, Sting's debut in December of 2020 was arguably the biggest get that AEW had acquired since Chris Jericho. His first few months of walking in during Darby Allin segments did get old after a while, but then when it came time for Sting to actually wrestle again, people were curious. After nearly breaking his neck several years earlier, could Sting really still hang? It turns out, yes, and then some. Though Sting may be the same age now as Gorilla Monsoon was when he passed, wrap your head around that one, folks, he's been booked in a way to hide the negatives in the handful of matches he's had. Somehow the Stinger's become the spiritual successor to New Jack, diving off all kinds of crap while managing to keep up with everyone he works with. Considering how badly his run in WWE ended and at the age he was at when it did, it's nothing short of a miracle that AEW's been able to get so much mileage out of the icon since his debut. It's one of the best ways I've ever seen a legend of his status being used. Only active in small doses, not taking anything away from the younger wrestlers he's going against, still able to make huge memories, and maybe even inspiring a whole new generation of little Stingers in the process. Number 6, the Rise of the Dragon. One thing that's easy to knock AEW for is how large and bloated the roster has become. In the last 3 years, AEW has gone on a major hiring spree, often to its detriment. Some signees have failed to pan out, but one in particular has definitely recouped the investment. Bryan Danielson made headlines when he appeared at the end of the All Out pay-per-view in September of 2021, his first appearance since losing to Roman Reigns on his way out of WWE that April. A lot of people knew what Danielson was capable of doing once the handcuffs were off, but the American Dragon took things to a whole new level in his first year in the company. His bouts with Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, Jon Moxley, Minoru Suzuki, and more have become instant classics. Pound for pound, I believe that Amdrag has cemented himself as the best pure wrestler wrestler in AEW and has already provided many of the greatest matches in company history. And because of their association with each other, I might as well include the acquisition of William Regal here too. Man, what a breath of fresh air it's been seeing the gentleman villain explore the role of coach and mentor as opposed to a stoic authority figure. I think it suits him perfectly. He's also in that rare Jericho category of being able to say pretty much whatever he wants to. More intense training promos, more weird pet names for Excalibur. Number 5, a new generation of stars. When AEW was first revealed to the world, lots of people wondered about the talent pool beyond the established names they'd already seen before. Who's going to step up and become new stars? Well, luckily, we've been getting some great answers to that question. As the last 3 years have gone by, we have witnessed the rapid maturation of talent that's gone on to become the backbone of the company. From Jungle Boy to MJF, Powerhouse Hobbs to Darby Allin, Britt Baker, Ricky Starks, Sammy Guevara, Daniel Garcia, and more, AEW's been able to craft interesting stories and book eye-catching matches to make all these men and women stand out, even amongst an ever-growing roster filled with more and more established stars by the week. Veterans like Eddie Kingston and the aforementioned Sting have been given new life on a grand stage. And we can't forget the Acclaimed, who've probably had the most organic turnaround from annoying heels to beloved babyfaces of anyone there. From undesirable to undeniable, from nobodies to household names, you gotta give AEW credit for helping build some of the stars who are gonna help carry wrestling through the next decade, including, well, we'll get to him later. Number 4, the first Stadium Stampede. You've probably heard me gush more about this match than anything else in the last 3 years, but I will die on the hill that the inaugural Stadium Stampede in 2020 was exactly what the wrestling world needed at that moment. In an era where nothing made sense and the whole world was flying by the seat of its pants, I challenge you to find a match that was more appropriate for the time and place than this. A chaotic 34-minute spectacle between the Elite and the Inner Circle. A wild brawl that explored nearly every inch of the TIAA Bank Field at Double or Nothing 2020. There was drama, there was action, and there was humor. A lot of humor. Each chapter telling its own little story, everyone getting a chance to shine, all with a happy ending as the Elite won the day. It was no blood and guts, but it didn't have to be. It was the perfect distraction to an otherwise distracting world. It was the Stadium Stampede, and for me, that alone is good enough. Number 3, CM Punk's debut. I know, the relationship between CM Punk and AEW now is a whole lot different than it was in the summer of 2021. But for this, the best of countdown, please, let's just remember the good times, yeah? August 20th, 2021, AEW welcomed its biggest signee to date when CM Punk came back to wrestling for the first time in 7 years since walking away from WWE. The electricity generated by the fans in Chicago that night could have powered the Windy City for a week. Something that many fans had resigned themselves to believe would never happen did indeed take place, as the voice of the voiceless made his triumphant return. In his opening address, he vented his frustrations. He expressed gratitude to the fans. He put younger talent over. He offered everyone ice cream after the show. I mean, really, name a better way to debut someone. The power of hindsight be damned. In that moment, CM Punk's long-awaited return to wrestling was one of the most exciting things in a decade, a moment that belongs solely to All Elite Wrestling. Number 2, the story of Hangman Page. Long-term storytelling. It's incredibly difficult to pull off in this day and age, especially when you factor in things like wrestler egos, fan reactions, things like injuries, and other events that are outside a booker's control. But if AEW were to go under tomorrow, they could hang their hat on this, a storyline that went the distance. At that very first AEW press conference, Hangman Adam Page called his shot and declared he'd be a future world champion. It would take roughly 2 years for that prophecy to come true, but along the way he encountered slip-ups and shortcomings. He lost the first ever AEW title match to Chris Jericho, and for many fans that was Hangman's one and only shot to make a big impact, causing some to question his ability. Over the next 2 years he'd find success with, then be left behind by, his buddies in the Elite. He would turn to drinking and isolate himself from his problems. But along the way, Hangman regained his confidence with the help of his adopted family in the Dark Order, and in the process found himself. His mantra of cowboy shit and what it means, his story of overcoming his self-doubt and his insecurities resonated with fans the world over, making him a natural hero to knock off the dominant Kenny Omega. The full circle moment came at Full Gear 2021 when Hangman finally beat his demons and his former tag team partner to make good on his promise of becoming world champion. There are those who would argue that Hangman's actual reign wasn't nearly as good as the chase. Well, there's a few things about that. Number one, they're right. Number two, that's the case with so many babyface champions over the decades. And three, the reign itself isn't the story here. Hangman's up and down journey was an amazing ride and was capped off in one of the best ways possible. In my eyes, it stands as the best storyline AEW's pulled off in the last 3 years. Before I declare my number one entrant, my honorable mention for the best of AEW in the last 3 years is Orange Cassidy and Danhausen. I'm not here to try and argue with people that Danhausen and Orange Cassidy are over as hell. They are, and if you disagree, you're just incorrect. I'm not here to explain why or how these two got so popular besides praising them for doing it their own way. But I will tell you that these are two of my favorite characters in all of wrestling at the moment, and they've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that funny does indeed make money. It makes me so happy to see these two succeeding. And my pick for the best thing AEW's done the last 3 years is All Out 2021. You can't talk about the good of what AEW's done as a company without talking about arguably their biggest and best show to date. A combination of an instant sellout crowd, an amazing list of advertised matches, and a whole lot of rampant speculation about what else might happen made All Out 2021 a veritable powder keg of anticipation and hype. And once the show got going, the fans in Chicago seemed to appreciate what they were watching. CM Punk's first wrestling match in 7 years, Ruby Soho's big debut, a spectacular tag team cage match, Eddie Kingston looking brilliant in defeat against Miro, and a world title match that, as good as it was immediately overshadowed by two huge debuts in Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson. Oh yeah, we also got a match with Paul White and QT Marshall, but who's counting? On that night, AEW delivered on gobs of fan expectations with one of the most entertaining pay-per-views all year. It remains, in my opinion, the biggest and best show the company's ever put on since its opening statement with Double or Nothing 2019, a moment that will stand forever as the time that AEW was at its strongest, for now at least. And that's why All Out 21 is my pick for the best thing AEW's done in the last 3 years. Once again, congratulations to AEW for 3 years down and hopefully many more to go. What else have you liked about AEW so far? Let me know in the comment section below. And hey, if you want to hear me trash AEW for that same time period, the countdown for that is right here, over my right shoulder, your left. Don't forget to subscribe and click that bell. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.